So today's guest is a senior business leader and consultant in the Leeds region. He's spent 20 years working in all sorts of industries and roles, from financial services to manufacturing, and from head of change delivery to executive board director. He's now the chair of the Leeds Digital Charity Ball, an annual event that raises funds to promote digital inclusion in the city. This year they raised over £100,000, which is just an incredible feat. He's also a co-founder of 1% for the City, which helps address the growing gap between the business economy and the people suffering hardship in Leeds. He leverages technology to digitise and transform businesses, and he's the co-founder of a company called By Diffusion, a consultancy that supports businesses to overcome the challenges holding them back. So listeners, please say hello to Mike Quate. Hi Mike, how are you?
Hello, yeah, well, thank you.
Very good. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I can see you've got your good branding behind you.
Made sure of it, yeah.
Absolutely. For those watching on YouTube, you can see the By Diffusion logo behind you, which is very smart.
Thank you.
So, Mike, I'm absolutely intrigued to have a good chat with you today, because I was just saying before we press record that our great friend Kirsty from Leeds Community Foundation said that you were one of the top people to speak to in the city. So what is 1% for the City? How did that come about?
Yeah, good question. It actually came after a run. We'd been out running, as we would do regularly on a Wednesday.
Best ideas come after running or in the shower.
Yeah, I'd say so. And we were just chatting about how Leeds is really growing. The investment in the city is phenomenal, really. And I guess the success coming out of the city is really great. And it wasn't too much longer after the first digital ball, the Leeds Digital Charity Ball, and we'd raised some good money as a first event. We were just chatting a little bit about how businesses could and probably should think about doing things a little bit differently. 1% for the City is built on the back of 1% for the, or the idea of 1% for the planet. So Patagonia, who kind of championed that, and the founders of Patagonia championed that. And we kind of thought, well, why couldn't we take that model and apply that for all businesses within Leeds, for example, for the city that we live and work in? You know, whilst there's all this great success, how do we make sure everyone gets to, I guess, share in that success? And there were a few articles around at the time which talked about how Leeds is you know, that booming city, but also there are some of the poorest postcodes in the UK in Leeds. And as we're sitting here in, you know, our nice offices, you know, a mile away, there's some real evidence of poverty that exists. So you can be a successful organisation, but you can also help level up. And that led on to a conversation with the City Council, and fortunate enough to work with Eve Roodhouse on the City Council on the ball. So, you know, there's the inclusive growth strategy, which they're relaunching this year. So it just felt like the right thing to do. And we got into a conversation later on around our own consultancy and how we could do things differently from that perspective. And we kind of thought, well, rather than give ourselves one challenge, why don't we do two and start two businesses? So that was one for the city, yeah.
Why not just give yourself double the amount of work?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. And how's it all going? How's one for the city? I keep seeing the branding, which is fabulous. And how's it going?
It's great. I mean, we're 6 months in for both businesses, for both By Diffusion and One for the City. We've got 10 businesses signed up to One for the City now. Jamie Peacock has come on board as an ambassador. We're just working on formalising some of the remaining elements of that and shaping up our partnership with the Leeds Community Foundation. We really want to make sure that we represent, I guess, that collective giving. So these 10 organisations that sign up, including our own, how can we demonstrate that, how that collective giving makes an impact? And that's the real important thing. It's great that we've got a brand around it. It's great that we're saying that we want to drive more inclusivity in the city, and that by coming together, these small to medium businesses that exist within Leeds or work with small to medium businesses in Leeds can make an impact. But it's kind of, well, what does that look like?
And what's the criteria for kind of signing up? What do people have to do?
There's no quite set criteria. I think that, you know, the limit. There are some larger organisations that wouldn't necessarily sign up to One for the City, probably on the basis that they've already got a charity partner in mind, or they've got several. But if you're a small to medium business and you want to demonstrate your impact by onward giving, then have a chat to us. You know, there's the website, oneforthecity.org. There's as simple as an inquiry form, but you'll have a chat with one of the board members. And what we want to do on the back of that is, in October, in line with the relaunch of the inclusive growth strategy, is have an event which just showcases those first 10 and have a discussion about it around why that's important, why it can be a good commercial business, and give back, and how collective giving can demonstrate wider impact. It's a great opportunity to have a conversation with a potential client. If you're a small business and you want to demonstrate how you're doing things differently and thinking about forward giving, particularly in the time where we're all talking about ESG being a priority, for larger organisations, they're going to need to demonstrate how they're doing that within financial accounting and mandatory reporting. We'll lead it, and you just need to tell people that you're part of it. The important thing is that we also demonstrate the work that has been done, or the intention of the work that will be done with Leeds Community Foundation, because they're a core asset to the city.
Absolutely, and they're just. I spoke to last week's guest briefly about the LCF, Leeds Community Foundation, and just the amazing work they do across just such a spectrum of charities. So
it's huge.
It's a great partner to have as part of an initiative to get private sector, especially SMEs, involved in giving as well. And it's something that can be taken from them. We don't know who the best charities are to support, who needs our help at what time, but Leeds Community Foundation definitely does. So
there's over 3,000 charities or community interest groups in Leeds alone. Those guys with other partners are connected, and they understand some of their money or funding needs to go. So a great conduit to all of that.
With the wider business community out of Leeds, out of Yorkshire, customers and clients and consumers are looking for companies that are getting involved with good causes. We don't just want to give our money away. We want to get involved with something that actually means something. And I think that's a growing thing that I'm seeing in marketing consultancy as well, is, brands that are doing good are getting great customers, and the customers want to be involved in that journey as well. So I don't see why that wouldn't be a thing for professional firms as well. So it's a really good initiative. Like
I said, we're 6 months in, and hopefully we'll continue to grow. And we've got a great team that are behind that, the board that we formed with real good positive intent. So I don't think you can argue with that.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about By Diffusion?
I've spent nearly around about 20 years in industry. Started my life as a project manager for RBS Insurance. For me, it's about not necessarily just, setting up a consultancy to be a consultant, but share that experience. And knowing that there are others, like in my peer network, who also want to do the same. I kind of moved into the contract world for a period of time. By Diffusion kind of grew out of that. Another thing that I wanted to do is, having worked with a number of organisations where some of the big, corporate consultancies have kind of come in. There's a thing for me again of how do you make that consultancy model more accessible? These founder directors who have had a great idea to start a business. That's what they want to do. They want to take that idea and continue to develop it and grow it, but they need some help with that. And that's really what I'd love to do is, work with those founder directors, knowing that they're going on a growth journey, to kind of bring some insights and leverage all that experience and expertise that's out there, as well as my own and my business partner, the diversity of that, to be an objective partner and not necessarily, I don't really like the term an expert, it's bring expertise and just bring some objective thinking.
Yeah. And it's knowing who to get involved as well, isn't it? Very much so when you're a consultant. I'm not great at that, but I know exactly who you need to speak to about whatever it might be.
Yeah, and it's how you pay for it as well. There's just that you can just pay for periods of time with different people, and that all those mix of skills. So that's how By Diffusion was grown, and I just thought it felt like the right time to go and do it and lean into it. And it's not been the easiest year in which to do that. Many business owners and other founders have said the same, but I'm glad I've done it. We're glad we've done it.
That's amazing. And, it's a journey. For the sake of saying another cliche, it's starting your own company and going through that process. And you don't quite know until you actually do it, what the marketplace is going to be like, what the reaction's going to be, what the needs are. What have you seen? What have you learned in the first 6 months of starting out? Because some listeners will want to, be sitting there thinking, I'm in a corporate job, what should I do? Should I go it alone? What have you learned?
I mean, it's a brave thing to do. I think even kind of, moving out of that, let's say, full-time paid work, as an employee to being a freelance or interim or contract. So that's it's a big move, and just kind of figuring out the landscape of what that means. And then to kind of move into founding your own business. There's so much to think about. And this is a thing, I'm talking about how I would like to help, or we're helping other founders, directors grow and scale their business. At the same time, we need a bit of that as well. There's so much to think about. that virtual board table of, like finance, marketing, operations, you never stop thinking about it. You're always on, I think. And no matter how much grit, determination, resilience, all those words that we like to use, no matter how much you think you've got of that, I think the test comes when you go and do it. And there was the build up to who are we? How will we identify as By Diffusion? Just even the name, the investment in the brand and the work that we've done, and then just the kind of how to navigate, setting things up, the legalities, just the finances. It's tough, but it's exciting as well. I'm really proud of where we've got to so far. Having reflected 6 months in, I'm really proud of the fact that we've gone and done it. But I think the thing for me is just being able to find the time to switch off. I think it's so important. I speak a lot around why I think the investment in mental health and mental well-being is important, as well as that kind of physical health. I've had to remind myself of that over the last few months.
Yeah, it's absolutely so true. I've set up, a few different businesses now, and physical and mental health and well-being are so paramount, because everything else, you can figure out, but those things you can't get back. So it's really important to kind of have, that discipline of having a practice, or
and good
going
habits.
for a run on a Wednesday or whatever it might be, seeing your mates in the pub, or it's really important, especially as founders and business owners. And I think because there's so much American content out there as well, especially on podcasts, there's a lot of kind of that hustle mentality that gets talked about. And I think they just don't get, we're European at the end of the day, that, it's really important to look after yourself as well. So otherwise you can't achieve all the things you need to do and lead how you want to lead.
It's great to have ambition, and it's how do you fuel that ambition and the drive and determination. And I think that's what we should be promoting rather than the hustle, because it's not real. Brené Brown talks about hustling. It's not real. When you start the hustle, you're always pretending, and you have to keep up to it. There isn't a longevity in it. But I think then if you start thinking about drive and ambition and determination, that's different.
Yeah.
And grit and resilience, they're really important, but they're not endless. It's too easy just to kind of read a LinkedIn post or, another article on the Harvard Business Review, but it's kind of in context and in balance of everything. And the other thing I'd say is, seek out those other founder directors, and have honest conversations with them about, and I did this last week. It's not easy. It's hard work. You're trying to balance your personal life as well as your business life. And you're kind of venturing into new territories.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's out of your comfort zone. And then you think, oh, it's all right. I've been out of my comfort zone. It's fine. But then there's another thing that you have to go out of your comfort zone. And so it's getting really comfortable with that uncertainty. I think that's really key as a founder. And I can totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
And absolutely. Get together with other people who've been through it, who are going through it, who you can talk to and learn from is the best.
100%. And there's enough, this is the other thing, like if you think about it from a grown-up perspective, there's a lot of work out there that we talk about competition and, who might your competition be, or, who's doing the similar thing. Well, there's probably a lot of people or organisations that are doing it. Ideally,
there's other people doing what you do, otherwise there's no work.
Exactly. But equally, with that comes the opportunity for strong partnerships. And there is this, another founder that I met almost a year ago said exactly that. And it's something that I've carried with me right through the course of us setting up, today. And I'm sure I will continue to give that advice. There's enough work out there for everyone.
Yeah, and the power of a team as well. The power of other people, from ideas to execution, whatever it might be. But there's nothing like getting other people involved to move something forward faster.
Yeah.
Agree. So you mentioned Brené Brown, who obviously talks a lot about vulnerability as well, which is
and that's one thing that leaning into is hard, but it's so important, and showing it. And that Dare to Lead was one of the first books that I'd read by her, and I bought for so many other people.
Oh, that's a good one. So you would actually buy it.
I used to spend a lot of time in the car, so just commuting was great for audiobooks. So that was one, and there was just almost those moments where you'd want to write something down, or you'd kind of rewind and listen again.
Back 30 seconds.
Yeah. That button's been pressed a lot. So that is definitely one for me. And there are so many that she's written I didn't know, but I'll listen to her podcast. She did like a series on Spotify for a period.
She's a busy woman.
Yeah, and I think she's just been through her own life journey as well, and she brings a lot of that into it. That talk about vulnerability, building resilience, but also just kind of having brave, honest conversations. She talks about being brave, daring, and kind. I think she always signs off with that. And 100%.
Can't go wrong with that, can you?
No, I think it's so important.
Yeah. I think there's a great. There's also, while we're on Brené, there's a good. I think she's on a Netflix, like a documentary on Netflix.
Yeah,
she's
there is.
She's one of her speeches or appearances, and it's actually really good as well.
Yeah, it is, and I think like she started. I think she kind of found that broader fame through a TED talk. It was one of the most watched TED talks at one point, talking about vulnerability. I think there's often that that honesty in the conversations that she has, and she encourages other business leaders to have. But I often wonder like how honest people like to be, but also how people respond to that honesty as well. It can often be quite difficult. We often talk about having to do that, but I think it can be really hard. So I think the premise or the setting in which you have those conversations and her books talk about is really important.
I better get my reading list out.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm not a massive reader, by the way.
You're not? No, it's just like, oh, that's great. I mean, that's great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of audiobooks as well.
Yeah, I need to use my Audible account more.
I keep getting credits. Yeah.
You the same?
Well, I get to... No, I definitely overuse it. Right. I'm always like buying extra credits.
Right.
And Mike, have you always been in Yorkshire? Have you?
I grew up here. I went to uni. I decided to stay in Leeds, and then after uni, kind of saved up, worked hard, saved up a load of cash, did a gap year. I can't believe how cheap that was now to do that.
Oh my God! Imagine now.
It was £1,000 for a round the world ticket.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, that would just be amazing, wouldn't it? We'd all do it if it was that tomorrow.
Wouldn't we? Yeah. So I did.
And where did you go? What was your favourite place?
Southeast Asia was easily, Vietnam was the best place for me to. So we kind of like landed in Thailand, did Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and then into Laos. And it was such a diverse country, and I guess the scenery of kind of being in the countryside and then on the coast, and the people and the food. I'm always led by food.
Oh, same, likewise. Wow. And thank God we've got some better Vietnamese food now over here.
Yeah.
There's some seriously good options now, aren't there? Which is
thankfully
well overdue.
So that was kind of the best place. And then I kind of did a bit of time in Australia, and then got back to Leeds, and then I met who is my wife now. We worked together before I went traveling, and then met up when I got back, and she's from Manchester, so she tried to get me to the other side of the Pennines. We nearly moved
to the dark side.
Yeah, but it didn't quite happen. The wholesale fell through, so then we ended up staying here and having our baby in lockdown. So
wow, lockdown baby, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
It was fate, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you tell her that.
Born in Yorkshire.
I
wouldn't dare. Hopefully she's not listening.
Yeah. I'll revel in the fact that it's on there. We've recorded it now for all to hear. And
if you weren't doing what you do now, what was your plan B?
When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was, fly, be a pilot. That was it. But I didn't. I thought that the business world was a better calling. There was a bit of that, and also it was a different time growing up in school and going through school in the 80s. I think to the encouragement that you might get now, it was always a thing around, maths, wealth, to be a pilot, privilege, I guess, which maths wasn't, like my major strong point. I can't say that there was the wealth there in which to spend a lot of money to do it. And actually there was just this interest in the business world and IT and create, I guess the creative side of that as well. So that's kind of where my schooling took me and uni took me. So I ended up doing a business degree in business and marketing. All right,
yeah, I did mine with French as well. So I put a bit of French in there, but mainly it was business and marketing.
Yeah. So, well, that's it. And I was able to tap into that a good few years ago. Just off some of the marketing element of that as well, which I've really enjoyed, and just even setting up the business. Actually, I've kind of enjoyed leaning into that a little bit more.
Absolutely. And it's like you say, there's always something new to learn.
Yeah,
when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, and just that whole world around brand and why it's so important, and then why that links into even in the work that we're doing now around consultancy and people and what that means internally. Could talk all day about that and why it's important. And often it's just, I don't know. There was the joke, often the joke in some of the organisations I've been in, that we were the colouring in department.
Oh my God. Well, I was doing some freelance work last year for a great business in Leeds. And we had one funny day where it was like we were getting lots of customers in, and I had to get some balloons, and I had to choose what colour balloons we had. And I was like, literally, I've peaked.
Yeah. I don't know if I can beat that.
Ever in my career.
I had to choose cakes for a little brand launch.
That's a pretty good one. You know.
I was there was all these guys doing some really good work on work that supported post-pandemic NHS work, and so they were doing that, and I was like, and I'm choosing cakes.
That's when you know you're a true leader.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
We talk quite a lot about ups and downs and lefts and rights on this podcast, so successes and failures. Is it a time when you can talk about, when you might have failed, or you thought you might have failed at the time that you're going through, and then actually you look back and realise it was actually a massive learning curve?
I don't know. I guess it's how you frame failure. For me, there's always this element of, how do you take a learning without being too hard on yourself? And I'm not very good at that. I try to be, but I'm better now. But I guess early stages in my career were so critical of what I would be doing, and I guess how it would look and what it meant. There's an element of being brave and stepping into and owning your decisions, which I think is more powerful, or can be as powerful, and acknowledging if something has gone wrong. I think that my role at early days as project manager is you're kind of always very risk conscious, and what do you do to manage risks? And I'm not sure that ever helped. That really, that did gain me some successes, but probably held me back a little bit. Might I have done By Diffusion a bit earlier? Probably. But actually, I've met a great business partner in which to kind of drive that on. And I guess some of the points to get to here have been really good. I nearly did this kind of during the pandemic. I'm not sure I was quite ready. I think there was kind of some of the learnings that I've taken now, just in terms of the roles or the organisations that I've worked with. So I think it's just being sure around the risks that you might take. I guess leaning into risk a little bit more, backing yourself a little bit. That's the biggest, learning that I've had is, back yourself. Your network and people around you are so important. But I would always seek counsel from others. But remember that it's just, that's what it is. And you can only do something, if you're ready and willing to do it. I think, I've kind of sought coaches, exec coaches, had some therapy. And I guess it's, all of that just builds a level of understanding in which to, create a platform in which to back yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's like having that self-confidence as well, because you've probably gone through lots of bad things, but once you've had that, it's experience, isn't it? In a way, it's like knowing what you're going to behave like and how you are, and that's backing yourself is knowing that you can get through difficult things, and you can get through difficult conversations and difficult times.
I think that experience is really key. I think without some experiences I've had, I'm not sure there's a level of authority in kind of moving, setting up your own business, right? I guess, and you can build that. I guess it puts you in a better place in which to do some of the things that you're doing. But yeah, it's the experience, and sometimes there are those moments in time where you have to make a decision, and it's almost being a bit kind on yourself. If it just turns out not to be the right decision, then that's okay as well. But you wouldn't have known, is it, unless you'd have tried.
Yeah, still moving you forward, which is the key.
Yeah. Some of the biggest things some of the most successful things have come on the back of mistakes. So that was another book I was going to mention, Creative Inc. That's a really good book.
Nice. And I've heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was about how Toy Story came about and the second film. And it might not have happened if there hadn't have just been an acknowledgement that those guys didn't think that they were going down the right path, and we need to start again. Love it.
Is it a Pixar one?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I think Pixar's an interesting one as well, just in terms of what they've done, how they do it.
And it kind of talks about how when you're a kid, it's drilled into you that you need to perform and be successful, and that A star is what you should always be aiming for, and you can't get it wrong. And you're only given one moment in time to get it right, but life doesn't really work like that.
No, and there's great wisdom in that, isn't it? It's like God, these failures, they actually help you grow hugely, let alone you think you're going through the worst thing ever, and then you realise looking back, you're like, oh God, actually I learned a load of stuff that I would never have learned. And it builds confidence and resilience and all the good stuff.
Absolutely.
So if you could give your 21-year-old self some advice, what would you say?
I've had this conversation a lot over the last year, actually, and travel kind of keeps coming up. Like, I did it, but there was a bit of I couldn't wait to get home, in a sense, to start earning money and, like finding my independence of, I guess, getting started with my career. That's the next, 30, 40 years of my life, or your life. So I'd say you don't need to rush to do that. Travel, gain that experience that you can, but that life experience. I think work will always be waiting. There's probably when's the right time in which to kind of lean into career and work, but it doesn't supplementing or doing something before that and gaining those life experiences is so important. But go and have some fun with that as well. It's all a bit serious, isn't it, when you get into the world of work, and then you kind of moving into, if you're building a business or you put that career plan, it's always a bit serious. So it's, where's the fun in
Hopefully not. You've got to have fun at the same time, I think.
Exactly, but I think there's just a bit of learning with that, isn't there? Like, just go and do it. So that's what I've done a bit of it. I would have said maybe not be so keen to rush back, and just don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah. I think that's a great message for any 21-year-olds out there.
I hope so.
And a couple of our other guests have said, exactly the same about travel. They wish they'd done more travel. When they were younger. Because, like you say, you can get stuck in your career. But travel's so important. It just broadens your mind, doesn't it? It's the best education.
I've done a lot of travel with work, and like that. I felt really lucky to have done that as well. And if I could do more, I would. I think there's another element of thinking around planet now, right? What the impact of travel is having on that. So
So in terms of work, like where did you have to go for work?
So I spent quite a bit of time in India with some of the financial services organisations that we're working with. I absolutely love it. Like that was the first place I'd kind of been on my travel. When we went on that backpacking trip, and we were like the three lads, 21-year-old lads who were just a bit green, and we were in India in the middle of, in Delhi, and we couldn't stay very long because we were just, I guess, a bit too green, and we were out of like traveller season as well. But I was fortunate enough to go back, and the energy there, and the spirit, and the determination to kind of do things, and certainly the people that I work with, but also like the culture that exists there was just, I found super exciting. Yeah, I think the relationships that I was able to build with my colleagues in India was great, and just that experience of being able to take other people with me as well, and just say, look, there's a whole bigger world here, and
look at this, it's amazing. And the culture differences and everything.
It's just so bright, and everything about it. I absolutely loved it. Felt really fortunate in being able to do that.
Yeah, what an opportunity.
There was a bit of you're getting off your flight and you're heading into your office, and it was very Western hotel brands that were there. So, but I made sure that we got out and we did things, and I think I've been to the Taj Mahal like 3 or 4 times.
Good for you.
Because I was taking my colleagues.
Now you're the tour guide, yeah.
Oh yeah. Which was cool, but so that being able to take others and show, and the team that we were building, and create those relationships, was really cool.
Yeah, it's lovely to travel with work. It's a real privilege, isn't it, I think? Because you get to meet other people from the local place who are doing similar jobs to you, probably. But and
when we were doing some of this stuff, we didn't have video calls. I'm not that old, but it was that felt like originally everything was just done by teleconference calls, and then so to go and meet the guys on the other end of the phone was really cool. And I built products with the team in Leeds, London, and Delhi. So and then to bring that to come together and celebrate that as a team was pretty good.
All the Gen Z people are thinking, "Oh my God, there was life without video call." What?
It took so long for us to get that in one of our offices as well. We had to go through such a risk review process just to kind of set up a camera in a room. And the amount of testing it took us so long to get it in. And now, you and I just sat here, and with a click of a button, it seems so weird that I had to go through such a process just to kind of get a camera set up in a meeting room.
So I used to worked for an Austrian company.
Yeah.
And, well, Red Bull, whichever.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I used to report into Austria, so I had to fly to the Alps and do these incredible meetings in, incredible scenery and the people and skiing, and oh my goodness, it was just a dream.
Don't you think though that by just kind of getting on a flight or on the train or something, just that being somewhere else and being in a different setting, and particularly like I guess within a role where you have to be more creative and innovative, it fuels some of that, and just seeing that, but all just having that time in order to do it.
Yeah,
I used to travel to London every week probably, and just having a couple of hours on the train either way, I would find like really helpful, really powerful, rather than just sitting at my desk, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, it's like getting on a plane, isn't it? I always think that's great thinking time, because
you
can't be anywhere else. You're not physically anywhere else. You're just there with your thoughts, and it's a really good time to be creative and
be nosy about your passenger that's at the side of you.
Yeah, if you want to be. You can either be really lucky on a plane, can't you, or just really unlucky. Yeah.
Fortunately, I've not had those unlucky incidents, but yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun. I'm sure we should do a podcast about travelling.
Business
travel.
travel.
There's some funny stories with that. So you talked a little bit about running and being healthy. So they obviously are healthy habits. What are your healthy and unhealthy habits?
I do that stuff primarily for head space. If I didn't do that, it's too easy sometimes. Again, doing what we're doing now, to be in your own head and occupy yourself with your own thoughts. So for me, there's just clear your head, get out, and I guess just stomp it out. It kind of creates that good thinking time. So if I didn't do it, my mental health, I think, would suffer enormously. And I think like just creating good habits is so important, like food and eating. We've talked about this a lot, haven't we?
Let's go there. I used to have a food blog, so I'm all over it.
There's just sometimes where if I'm in a bad habits or are creeping in, and I'm a bit tired, and I guess let's talk about that you're approaching that stage of maybe burnout. That's where the bad habits and just kind of not eating well, and my food choices,
and too much caffeine
terrible. Yeah. So that day would be my bad habits, is like not eating well. I eat like a toddler, actually.
You've got a toddler and you eat like a toddler.
There's a lot of beige when I'm not like in a good headspace, or I'm just a bit tired, and convenience. And again, when you're traveling, so I try to make sure I'm more structured and I'm better about my food choices. Again, it just doesn't do my mental health very well.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? You kind of go for the beige and the saltiness because you're tired, but then later on you just feel absolutely terrible. You're like,
and this is
if I just had a green smoothie, I'd have been feeling good.
That's it. I was training for the marathon, for the Leeds marathon, and I injured my calf, so I didn't end up running. It was literally the 2 days before I had to pull out.
Oh, wow! But you did all that training.
I did, but I think a lot, probably put down to that is just, was I eating right? Was it, really investing in all the physical health aspects of running, but the everything that comes with it, and food was a big part of it, and I don't think that I did that well. So,
because you have to eat a lot, don't you, when you're training for a marathon?
A lot, and it's all the right stuff as well. Yeah. And I was just, I didn't do it. I didn't do it as well as I could have done. But so that day,
as you said before, don't be too hard on yourself.
I guess. Yeah. So they're the bad habits, I would say. And do you know what? Doom scrolling and phone time is like, that's some of my bad habits. Again, just a bit tired, rather than kind of getting up and going for a run or a walk or going down the gym. It's too easy to kind of get caught in a loop of doom scrolling. You kind of think it's useful if you're on LinkedIn, but... Yeah,
you do. I think I've definitely unfollowed things that are not helpful or don't make me feel good. I've been very intentional about it because I spend quite a lot of time on social.
Yeah. It can be a bit addictive, can't it? Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's designed to be addictive.
Yeah.
That's what the little red orbs are for in the hearts and everything.
So I've turned off notifications and stuff like that now, and I think it's
the way
getting into
forward.
that. Yeah, and this is the thing: is that business owner, founder, is kind of creating that headspace, the free headspace.
You need time out.
Yeah, and if you're on it all the time, and the habits are building. They're the bad habits that are building.
Mm.
So I've tried to be, more mindful of that.
That's a really good one, because I think there'll be a lot of listeners who are listening thinking, God, that's me as well.
Yeah,
we all do it because it is addictive.
Yeah, it's too easy, isn't it?
It's making it work for you. I think that's my advice to clients and contacts is just make sure it works for you. If you just had one message, Mike, that you could leave our listeners with, what would it be? If you could say something on a billboard.
It's easy to be kind, and that gratitude that comes with kindness, I think is super important. Certainly the spirit of kindness, and it is easy.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think it's easy to be kind, full stop.
Yeah,
it's a great thing to leave on a billboard. And is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know? So can you tell us a little bit more about the digital ball in Leeds?
Yeah, so this kind of was on the back of, again, it was the pandemic, and a friend of mine, Sandra Patel Stewart, who runs Transition Partners, she kind of approached me and said, think about doing this. There's a few others. Do you want to get involved? Essentially, it was a night to raise awareness around digital inclusion and what that means. And the pandemic really shone a light on that. To be digitally excluded can be as harsh as, life expectancy, time to treat an illness. If you don't have a digital device, you can't get on to make a doctor's appointment. And we all know how hard it is to do that, like picking up the phone or even kind of getting test results and then following up from that. So to be digitally excluded can have a real impact on, just day to day and things that most people take for granted. So it's to kind of shine a light on that. Our first event raised £60,000, of which 50,000 went to charitable causes across Leeds, and they're just kind of reaching the end of their first year. Second year, we managed to get 100,000. We had some great sponsors, and the sponsor we were just at 96, and some of the big sponsors kind of reached out to the network and said, "Can we help these guys?" There's that money is going to be starting to be distributed come September. So we hope to do it again next year. And there was 550 people there. So it's just a night for let's say the digital community or those involved in the digital community in Leeds to come together to have a good time and also raise some money for some important causes. And that was one night where we managed to raise 100k. So
that is fantastic, because I've been involved in quite a lot of charity balls and events, and it is no mean feat to raise that amount of money. That's incredible. So well done you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a real team effort. And so we're just kind of working out what we do for next year, and we will do it. But yeah, it was definitely a team effort. You
mentioned obviously the tech scene and the digital scene in Leeds, and I know that's something that you're involved with as well. What sorts of things are going on at the moment? What are you seeing? What trends are happening in the city? For someone that might not be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, really, because the theme across Leeds is is tech and digital, and I guess it's what does that mean, but it touches us at every part of our life. So I don't know if we can just put it into a pot. I think it's always going to be there. Obviously, there's this constant conversation in the narrative around what is AI doing and how is that going to change what we're doing. I think we're a long way off. That being it's an important and influential point in decisions that are being made for organisations, but to even understand how to use it and integrate it into what you're doing. I don't know if you've kind of been having a play around just with ChatGPT.
I'm obsessed.
I'm obsessed with it. And
I keep saying to my husband, I'm like, get on it, because if you're not on it, everyone else is going to be on it, and you're not using all that 100,000 other brain power.
You have to game it though. It's not like it's just like it just works and it's just everything's done. So and it takes real time to understand it, and manipulate it, and and that's the thing. It's a useful tool. I'm talking a lot to our clients at the minute around people deliver tech, people consume it, and that's whether it's for your customers or internally with how your organisation operates. It's a way in which to run your business or consumers or customers to use your product. It facilitates it, but the people to start and end with it. I think we need to remember that, and a big part of our narrative of By Diffusion is put people at the heart and centre of it. Use tech and digital in which to facilitate what you're doing, and there'll be a nice balance and a nice mix of the right outcomes on the basis of that. It's not one or the other. So that's what we're talking about a lot. Particularly
that makes so much sense, and I mean, at the end of the day, we're all consumers, we're all clients, we're all customers, we're all seeing tech-related messaging. But at the end of the day, if we can't understand it or if we can't communicate what we mean, no good at all. We need to have that people element on both sides. So the person that's going to consume it and the person that's created it.
Yeah.
And the tech in the middle.
In the middle, that's it. We got together with one of our associates a few weeks ago, and we talked about that. We often talk about upgrading our tech and plugging our tech in to upgrade it. But we talked about, like, what about enabling that upgrade for your people? Your operating system, you plug your phone in and it'll update overnight. But how are we helping our people update? You know, and how do we taking them on a journey? You know,
yeah, because it can be quite a scary process as well, especially for, I hate to say it, older people, some older people. It's a scary thing. You know, I speak to friends about it and they look at me like, oh my God, are you talking? I'm not, you know, I don't want to change my habits, because it's a habit change, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to get on board and start using it. It's really important that we've got like a really, I don't want to get on my soapbox, a really broad spectrum of people using AI, because that's how we're going to get good outcomes as well.
I think start with the understanding, and that's the thing. There's just been a lot of headlines about what it can do, or I guess some of the negative connotations are surrounding it. But I think there's where can we put it to good use? Everyone's busy. Maybe it just means in some regards we don't need to be as busy, where we've got the help. Something like AI.
Where can we find out more if we want to know a bit more about One for the City or By Diffusion? Where should
ByDiffusion.com. Take a look. Look me up on LinkedIn. I'll have a chat and a coffee. Yeah, I'd love to expand my network and chat to more people about what we're doing. I'm One for the City, oneforthecity.org. We're looking to hold an event, or we will be holding an event kind of in October. So maybe have a look at that. So the more people that we can get signed up to that, it's 1% of revenue or profit. It's not a lot in the grand scheme of things.
I love it. And I think it's something that clients and customers will love as well.
It's a great talking point, isn't it? And
yeah, absolutely.
You say 1% of your invoice goes to, you know, that charitable organisation. Job taken care of, isn't it?
I've run an e-commerce business before, and it was kind of in the early days of giving, you know, percentage profit to charities, and it was mental health charities,
right,
that I was personally really involved with.
Yeah.
And it just, like, customers loved it. The more you talked about it, the more people on social media were just, you know, they loved the brand, they bought the brand.
Yeah.
Because of your values as well. It was a real
and that's it.
Learning curve.
People are just so, I guess, more so now, driven by purpose. Who are you about? What's your business about? How can we be part of that same purpose or advocate for it? So and sometimes it just makes buying decisions a little bit simpler as well. We just can't continue working in the way that we have. You know, like I said, you know, right at the beginning, you can still be successful and you can still be a successful commercial organisation. It's just we need to reframe some of our thinking.
And I think it's being driven as well by younger generations as well. You know, they're the ones that want purpose in businesses. That, you know, they're looking.
I think they need it. Yeah, it's like a different time. It's like, what is it for? They know that they're going to have to work longer. They're not going to have the same access to finance to kind of buy a house, that whole home ownership thing. Yeah, it's like, well, what am I going to work for, and who am I working with, and what am I doing that's making more impact? And this is the thing, you know, we were saying earlier about the decision, it's the moments in time.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing for me. Like the moment, like I didn't know SAP before I worked at the last consultancy. So I'm glad that, because now we're sat here doing this.
Exactly, yeah.